All right, guys, welcome to our weekly Trifecta Nutrition Talk. And before, we're going to talk about some cool stuff today. We're going to talk about processed versus unprocessed carbohydrates. And we'll get into that. But first, I did want to catch up with Adrienne because she's doing some really cool stuff on her social media. I saw she was promoting the class that she's hosting. And Adrienne, I was hoping you could just fill us in a little bit about what's going on with that.
Yeah. It's called a masterclass. I might go through a different name change because I don't want people to think that it's like a serious thing, right? But like with a lot of kids going back to school, I had the idea of having a kind of like a one-stop shop where I can go over kind of all my areas of interest for other people. So nutrition, lifestyle, working out, mindset, every day kind of having a topic that I dive into. So it's for free. Right. So people can log on, get some basic information of questions that most people have, and there'll be a lot of Q&As. Basically, I wanted to take what I loved about being a professor and what I love about the online space, and I wanted to put it in one place and just build like a free community where people can ask questions. And if I can't help them directly, I'm going to point them in another direction. Right. So it's going to be a big feeder for a lot of different other people, actually, because I'm going to refer out a ton. Right. So, I mean, I might have someone come up to me and literally ask me about CrossFit. I'll give them my opinion, be like, hey, if you're going to do this, this is where you should go. Does that make sense? Or like any of these topics that come on, we're only able to cover like one thing a week. So I wanted to kind of hyper rapid. I also want to see what people are truly interested in. So that's kind of the class starts next Monday. And we start right away with some like pretty controversial topics. And when people join, I mean, I'll have a link if people, when they join, I have to invite you. You have to be, you just can't join. So you have to be admitted in. And the only reason I'm doing like an admission part is just because I just want to weed out any weirdos. Yeah. So it's definitely a positive, open environment specifically for health. Also building a community where people can have like-minded people, build relationships. Like in my head, I want to have like events and shit like that, But for now, I just want a certain area where adults can go to class and like kind of become their own, have the educational resources to become a student of their own body. And put it kind of like under one hub and then kind of go from there. So that starts next week.
I'm into it.
That's cool.
I'm gonna see that on your story, or if you post about it, I'm gonna reshare that because I know a bunch.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, that's so cool. So I guess now we got to talk about nutrition. That's what we're all here.
Yeah.
And, we seem to know a little bit.
Right.
So this morning when I texted you guys that we should talk about this because I did see it on Adrienne's list of topics that she once sent to us, and I was like, yeah, this is great because coincidentally, I'm starting to talk to some of my my clients about things they could be eating, okay? And I'm getting some pushback over mindset regarding certain foods. And let me give you my background, so because this has to be a mindset and a shift here. I mean, Adrienne, when I started really looking at nutrition, I used to have conversations with you. It was paleo, right? That was into like some serious, other than bodybuilding nutrition,
right?
Which is what everyone was on back in the day when I was in school.
Yeah.
So I'm eating pretty bland stuff on that diet: potatoes, rice, oatmeal, chicken, and then I went into like the paleo direction, and I rode that train for quite a while. And gluten is bad. All toxins in food are bad, and it's gonna ruin your digestion and things like that. Stay away from gluten. Start to develop these relationships between foods that have gluten in it and that are and foods that are just grown, right? And then all of a sudden you come to a nutrition program, frankly, the way I look at it now, because now I've come full circle on the other end, and I still enjoy like, tenets of paleo, and I use them in my personal nutrition and things like that. But you have to realize that if you don't have a food allergy, a known food allergy, there's sometimes a place for an unprocessed carbohydrate.
Oh, for sure.
If you don't have a food allergy, and that's why I wanted to make that clear, because I'm getting a lot of clients with zero food allergies, no digestion issues to any kind of foods, And I'll suggest something like, if they really have some carbs left over and they want a treat, to have a bowl of cereal when they're allowed to eat a lot of food. And
Right.
it's like restriction about like, I can't eat that, or I feel bad if I eat that, or that's going to make me feel this way, or that's going to make me look this way. And really, it's the same. If we look at
Yeah.
what carbohydrate is, as long as you don't have any food intolerances, it's the same. Now, do I want most of your diet to come from processed or unprocessed? Well, that's a no-brainer. But
Right.
a lot of people need to get over the mindset, especially people that have come from that paleo camp, that
Mm-hmm.
all unprocessed food does not have a place in your diet, because I think
Right.
there's a small place for it. What do you think?
Yeah, I think like defining what it is, what are processed versus unprocessed carbs. I think just starting there, right? And understanding like what is and what isn't. So
Mm-hmm.
like processed being anything that's gone through at least one phase of manufacturing. So unprocessed obviously is everything on the ground that we can pick or pull off a tree, right? So an orange would be unprocessed, orange juice is processed.
Mm-hmm.
But there's benefits to both.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, should 80% of our diet roughly be unprocessed? Yes. But as to say, processed carbs are very good for quick fuel and sometimes quick recovery. So they can be leveraged. There's a time and a place for carbs,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think processed carbs work. I've told this so many times, around the workout window is when you want to have them,
Yeah.
right? Because they break down too fast,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's when if they don't break down fast enough, we can't use them. We store it for energy. And if your body is more fat derivative, it's going to camp out in the fat section. Right. But yeah, when I get someone up to the point where I actually like want them to eat processed stuff, they're going, no, I can't. It's going to make me fat or I'm going to gain weight. I was like, not in physiology, not if you use it at the right time, or even if they don't. Right. Even if it's part of a cheat meal or they go or whatever, it just happens. It's not going to magically just immediately turn into weight gain.
Exactly.
And like, I think clearing that out for people is going to take a while. So it took just you and I a while through education.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But people do definitely, I'm sure Janice, I'm going to piggyback right with her in a second. A lot of people do give a lot of pushback. Well, that's bad. There's no
Yeah.
good or bad food. There's good or bad situations where food fits in or it doesn't.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would, yeah, to piggyback off of pretty much agree with what both of you said. And I'm a big proponent of right around the workout window. Sugars, like I've never been one to do like the gummy bears, but I know that there's athletes that people do like straight candy before they were going
But
to
you
go.
do dextrose though.
Yeah. So it's like,
You,
you know,
yeah.
and when I say that to people and I'm like fast acting carbohydrate, something that's like basically its simplest form, they look at me like, you want me to eat sugar? I'm
Yeah.
like, well, kind of right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of do. And then it seems like you can rationalize it with them when it comes to the workout, when you explain it.
Yeah.
But then when you go to put it in the rest of the day or another time of the day, it becomes that fight. But I also do think that it comes to, there's different type of clients that you have. And a lot
Right.
of them, a lot of the clients who have that restrictive nature, or think of the paleo style, think of pulling all that stuff out, you feel great. The first time that you do have something that's not 100% clean, you do oftentimes have a little bit of bloat in your stomach. You have some reaction to it, but it's just because your body's adjusting. The idea of having some of these unprocessed kind of carbohydrates in your diet on a regular basis is that you don't have those crazy, I don't have gut issues now because I'm not so restrictive. I
Mm-hmm.
allow myself to have a little bit. But I will say that there are some people that do have, a terrible binge eating tendencies. They have things like that. So they get the mentality is, if I allow myself to have that, then I can't stop it. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I think when you're dealing with those clients too, it's like trying to figure out like how do you handle that? Like we had talked about nighttime routines, like
Mm-hmm.
people who binge eat at night. Like what are things that you can say, yeah, I do want to have it, but maybe we can do it in a little bit more of a controlled setting.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing about the processed carbs are that also the additives and stuff in there are meant for you to eat more. They're empty calories. They taste so good. There really
Mm-hmm.
isn't a lot of nutritional value in them. But at the end of the day, though, we were even talking. Matt and I were talking to one of our clients who you know, he said, in order to change my game, I have to add in, you know, less processed foods. And we kind of went through, and he doesn't eat a shit ton of veggies. He definitely can change the way he eats, but he's also eating 3,400 calories a day. So it's really hard to eat a lot of unrefined or unprocessed carbs when you're eating 3,400 calories on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So having some processed carbohydrates in there just for the calories alone, and just to get the, you know, just to get them in, sometimes it kind of is like, hey, yeah, like eat a Cliff Bar, eat cereal, you know, have bread when you're eating your dinner, you know, like you need it, you know, your body's in a position now where you're actually in the fat burning, where you're just burning everything that comes in order to maintain or grow. You need to. It's scary for some people, you know. They instantly fat.
Yeah, and I definitely think that the percentage swings depending on what part of your journey you're on. Because
Yeah.
some people might need more like I don't know, like 90% unprocessed.
Right.
Because they just need food volume. Like you were saying, it's really hard to eat 100 grams a day of sweet potato, rice, and fruit. It's actually kind of not easy.
No.
People are like, man, or even 125, 150, whatever. They're like, man, I'm kind of like, I'm so full. I'm like, well, that's how you should feel. But for other people that are, they're farther along their journey, it's almost like you can back that out, like 90 to 85 to 80, where now my unprocessed carb tolerance is a lot higher because I have a better GLUT transporting system. Like I know what to do with my sugars, but you have to train that over time. And that's, I think, the biggest component people understand is at the end of the day, this is all physiological. Physiology takes time. Just because in your head, you say, hey, this bowl of cereal is going to turn into 20 donuts. Physiology isn't going to really let that happen. It might turn into 4 or 5 donuts, but you're going to get sick and vomit.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So like, it's almost like the fitter you are, in my opinion, and have your health organized, the more flux you have with unprocessed carbs.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So like in the beginning of the journey, most people are probably going to feel better, respond better to more unprocessed.
Yeah.
And then, does that make sense? And then like, as they get in better shape and they build more muscle, you kind of need to rearrange that.
Yeah.
So they keep their tolerance is higher for carbs because they're getting more muscle. Like you said, there's more caloric output. They're going to need more calories.
And like I have like someone like this guy I'm talking about, and he's on 400 grams of carbs a day.
And he's probably lean, really lean.
He's lean as shit, but I'm saying you can't do that all clean. You know
can't.
What I mean?
You
literally
actually
will be eating all day long.
No, and when you work with higher caliber athletes, actually it gets a little dirtier because they need more calories. Now for like the general public that we work with, right? It's usually the opposite. They're just eating too many unprocessed.
Yeah.
Where then carbs become demonized.
Yeah.
It's like carbs are terrible.
Or like I say, like, you know, in our nutrition intake, we say, you know, show us a typical day of what you eat, and we talk about allergies and all those type of things. And in there, you know, it's like what they eat. Well, then honestly, you don't need me. If that's what you eat on a typical day, then why are you even sitting in front of me?
Right.
But it's that because it's like, okay, now I'm thinking about my nutrition. I want to get it handled. I'm going to eat clean for 5 days straight. And then it's like, oh yeah, I can't have, you know, but obviously you've been having, because if you ate what you're telling me right now, you would be like leaner than anybody in the gym.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, you're eating all this protein, you're eating all these veggies, and I only see that you're having a sweet potato 1 time a day. Like, we wouldn't be having this conversation, but obviously there's that weekend that you're having the alcohol, or, you know, the pizza, or, you know, there's some kind of thing going on in there. But if you figure out a way to balance it, where, like I say, it's just the ebb and flow of the day where it's not so scary. You know, I had a client she's like, I was in New York yesterday and I had a cookie, you know, so I know, I hope that's not bad. I said, you had 1 cookie?
Was that like 20 grams of carbs? If it fits with it, like, you know?
Yeah. And I said, I really want the hope in this journey for you. I really hope that your mind shift changes and you realize that it's just food. You know, you just have food. And that it's not like you need to punish yourself because you had a cookie. You know? And
that's where I think working under macros can be really great for the mind space, Because if you have a certain amount for that day, and if someone are just like, listen, as long as you just don't go over this specific number of carbs, I kind of don't care where it comes from. And people at first are like, really? Like, yeah, I don't care if you have a cookie and a sweet potato, just don't go over this. And then once they start to realize that staying within that still gives them results, there's more empowerment. They're like, this isn't going to affect me. I'm fine. I have a strategy. So I think like what you're saying is so true, where people just, if they don't have that overarching strategy, there's fear because they don't know how to manipulate the system. I think that's where a lot of people really sit right now, is like, they don't have a strategy. Because they don't have someone giving them a customized approach. Right. Where you're sitting down doing the intake, going through and really looking at it from both like subjective, educational experience. And that's like the big difference why like people are successful with you, because you're taking the time to educate them and break it down. And start working with them. Okay, well now it's time to dial up more processed carbs. And most people just don't have that experience. They don't have like a guide on their journey. And I think that's where a lot of people can get slippery.
And like you said, it takes a long, long time. Like the way I tell people is you develop a metabolic flexibility. People that come in, like, you know, we deal with people whose metabolisms are shot, really, really inflamed, you know? So yeah, we're working that like first foundational, is like piecing together a good diet of basically good foods. Because I don't get any issues with it. I don't add the processed in. I have like I'm seeing a trend now. When I get women over 2,000 calories, we have to start adding some other stuff in. Is around 2,000, 3,000 is kind of where I'm at. And to tell you the truth, most of my clients are on this like, you know, by giving them their macros, they're constantly on this reverse diet. And it does take a couple of weeks. They have to be like pretty far along their journey to even reach that point, because sometimes they come in, they're eating like 1,500 calories. I'm like, all right, let's start there. Here's your carbs and stuff. And we start there. You don't really have that much room for shit. Like, you really don't, you know? So, you know, it does take a long time to kind of like earn that stuff, and also earn, you know, as far as the education about it. So you realize food it's a fuel. That's what you're eating it for.
Yeah. I really like that term that you use, and I keep forgetting that's what it's called, metabolic flexibility. But it takes time to develop the skill of actually training your body where the glucose goes. It really takes time, and it can be done, and it definitely can be done when you start to strategically time the process. I found that to probably be the biggest thing, is just to time the damn thing first. Like if you got to eat a Snickers bar every day, great, before and after your workout. Cut that thing in half before and after, right? Like just giving them like, okay, this is where it belongs for now. Ride that out for 2 months. You know what I'm saying? So like, yeah. And the same thing, I find that constantly with people just under eating. And they're like, why aren't I losing weight? I'm like, because your body is just scared to shit because it doesn't have any nutrients. Or schedule of nutrients. It's like, am I going to get a Snickers bar today, or am I not going to eat, or I'm going to have a healthy meal? So like it has no insulin stability either.
It has no idea when it's getting.
No clue. So it's going to hold.
And also, you know, the mindset of a lot of people that we train with, and I know that you probably have clients like that as well, but we've talked about CrossFit before. There's a certain type of person, that type A person, that does CrossFit, that decides to do it and sticks with it. So they are the people that a lot of times will pound themselves into the ground. You know, they go out on a Saturday, they're going to do a workout on Sunday, and they might do two. Why? Because they're punishing themselves for enjoying themselves on a Saturday night. So they do more, and they eat less, you know? So it's been eye-opening I work with a lot of female clients. I only have a couple guys, but it's been very eye-opening for the women that I work with, to see when they have their in-bodies, to actually see where their BMR is. The resting metabolism. Because then they show me my fitness pal, and they're at 1,200 calories. And I'm like, okay, like I had one today, her resting metabolism, and you're at 1,600. That's just to breathe. You're training 6 times a week. And
this is
job,
like
you're on your feet, and your stress is through the fucking roof, and it all works together. Like maybe if you ate a little bit more, your adrenals wouldn't be so freaking fried right now, you know? It all kind of works like hand in hand, but it's like, if you can never shut it. So it's definitely getting them. And that's also where I had the question from a client today was, well, if I want to, you know, I want to lose like 5% body fat, you know,
that's a lot.
when can you foresee that happening? And I said, honestly, we'll go
year?
on next week. I said, right now, I said, 2 weeks ago, you were eating 1,200 calories, right? I have you eating 16 right now. So we've jumped you up.
Yeah.
Next week, you're going to come. And I said, and we talked about protein last week. We're just talking about carbohydrates now this week. I don't care how much fat. Like before, I was like, I don't even care what you eat. You need to eat more. That was it. Eat more, sleep more. That's what you need to do. And I said, so 3 weeks in, I'm sure you're going to have some composition changes just from fueling yourself a little bit more, but it's a long game. So if I let you know, like it's not in 2 months, you're not going to be at your goal weight. So you might not even lose a pound in the next 3 weeks. You might lose body fat, but I think I said, remember how you got here. You're 30 some years old.
Yeah.
Over the course of these last years is where you put on your weight. So why would you expect to pull it all off without
the same process?
You know what I mean? And I said, and you can continue to yo-yo. And then we talk about what yo-yo is. She's like, yeah, that's pretty much my life. I'm like, yeah, because it's pretty much you diet, you get frustrated, you binge, you decide to diet again when your pair of pants don't fit you, and the next thing you know, it just continues to happen over and over again. So I feel like the definition of what people say they want to lose weight, or they say they want to lean out. And when you really explain to them what leaning out is, it's not really necessarily losing weight. It's, losing fat. And if you don't have muscle, you're not going to be toned. So you have to have muscle. So when you kind of break that down to people, they kind of are like, oh, yeah. But still, they're freaking scared about that scale. And it always comes to carbs. It always comes back to, well, I'm afraid. Or like you said, it's going to make me fat. But
you know what I always tell people, like, well, when am I going to be able to see abs or see my arms or my veins and stuff like that? And I give them a baseline of what your skeletal muscle mass has to be, and your body fat starts seeing stuff to actually see how far away they may be, right? That's going to take so much work. I find that with most males, and now I'm seeing it more with females because I was working with a lot of males. But Janice, maybe you're seeing this too. When ladies and guys, for me, become lean is when half their total body weight is skeletal muscle mass, and their body fat is down to just about a healthy level, right? So like even around 50, like if you're anywhere around 15 for a female, 20, like 15 in there, and then if you're anywhere from 10 to 12% for a guy, but your skeletal muscle mass has to be half of your total body weight, and that's when they're like, okay, so I get it now. I got to gain more skeletal muscle mass, and then you know what they'll do in the same conversation, they equate it to, I should go, when I go do extra work, I should go do more cardio, like I'm gonna go run, right? So some people aren't even have the right training protocol for it, right?
Yeah.
So they come out of our classes, what do? They go run, right? These are ladies that have muscle that are having muscle mass issues, and listen, half your skeletal muscle mass, half of it, right? Yeah. So, I mean, running is not going to get you there. Running may reduce body fat, but guess what? It's also going to reduce skeletal muscle mass. So, like, even some that you gain in some of our group sessions, you're just eating it away. So some of them, like I was talking to a client the other day, we had made some changes, and I was like, you know what? You got to add 2 days a week of just some like total body hypertrophy work, lower body, upper body. Just add 2 days. Stop running, and just go add 2 days of like 8 exercises. Upper body, lower body, 3 sets of 10 to 12, minute rest in between, and just hit that. Like, at a certain point, their nutrition is so good, you really have to revisit, how are they actually training?
Right.
What are they actually doing here? Because you see with your female clients all the time, what do? More cardio.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, exactly.
They need more rest.
Yeah, and more rest too. Yeah, that also.
More rest. More carbs, more rest, more carbs. I mean, to get for hypertrophy, I still am pretty certain you need a pretty decent amount of carbs. Obviously, your protein intake has to be on point, but I think like a big missing component of that is, how far can you go within your carb threshold?
Mhm.
You know, it's one thing we kind of didn't talk about with like, one of the things I really like to do with people is to push it as far as I can for as long as I can.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
sometimes I'll try to make them gain weight and they don't.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it's like, they like pound their heads against the wall. They're like, I could have been eating 400 to 500 grams of carbs. I'm like, yes, that's literally your threshold of where you spill over.
Mhm.
Like you put on a little bit of mass and it's not like, you know, it's like muscle fat. So
Yeah.
that's where, you know, the edge is. Anything over here is going to be towards body comp, like fat loss. So some people, I'll push them to the razor's edge. And then they're like, oh, this is
Yeah.
how much I can eat. I'm like, yes, now do you get it? So
Mhm.
anything that's slightly less than that is your deficit,
Yeah.
right? So I actually got that technique from Charles Poliquin a long time ago. He used to do this with everybody: calories, carbs, everything. He'd push as far as he could to the right to
Mhm.
see when the spillover would happen, and then just taper very slowly from there.
Right.
I'm always surprised at myself sometimes. I run myself through it. I'm
Mhm.
like, Jesus, like I can eat a shitload of carbs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so, you know, and when clients look at that and they're like, you know, you look at where most of their carbs is and try to push that into like some form of unprocessed, they're like, this is very difficult. I'm like, yeah, when you're eating whole nutrient dense foods, it's tough.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like you said, especially when it comes to the calories. What do you have a focus on the glycemic index when it comes to carbs?
Um, just for like workouts, really. So I want, you know, try to keep everything as low as possible, but the high ones I like for workouts.
Right.
And only if the person's maybe has some insulin issues, but it's not a bad thing to check it out,
Yeah.
you know, because it's usually like a win-win.
Right.
And if the client's used to that or something, I'll definitely use it. But yeah, glycemic index I think is pretty important for someone that if they've got issue managing their sugars, which
Yeah.
90% of people do. So I try to choose foods around like, you know, free kind of lower stuff that they can eat. I usually give them like a template of stuff
Yeah.
over here, and then all high GI stuff I want for their workout periods.
Right. Matt, do you ever hone in on that at all?
I kind of refer to it the same way Adrian
Yeah.
does. Either solids or liquids around their workout. Those categories are in there. So you know they know I'd rather have them have something simple. And honestly, a lot of the folks, again, I think I have the easy ones. I really, really do. But they're just straight up like, I'll just do my protein and like a cyclic dextrin or something.
Yeah.
It's really easy. Like, you know, Dennis, I have it too easy.
You do.
I will say though that I haven't had anybody fight me on the workout nutrition. They really haven't, because I push it across so early. And if there's a way that I can get them to be a little bit more comfortable with carbs, it's going to be then.
Yep.
And I just let them know that like you're pounding your body into the ground and you're doing something adverse to your body. You're actually just beating it down. If you're not fueling it and replenishing, that's the one time of the day that you actually have the opportunity to shift stuff. So take advantage of it. And then they start being like, oh, okay, I thought I should do this fasted. I mean, you can.
Yeah.
You can do fasted if you want, but you're probably gonna and that's usually what by week 2, middle of week 2 of like when I check in on people, like, yeah, man, I don't feel like I'm starving at the end of the workout. I don't feel like I'm dying in the middle of the workout. Like I feel like I'm performing a little bit better. One of my clients has been like doing really well and PRing her lifts. I'm like, so like I look at that as the non-scale wins too, especially when you have so many
Oh yeah.
food onto that scale so much that you know, it's all about that, you know, how you feel, how you're performing, and it all will trickle down. It will, you know.
So you're seeing a lot of performance and mindset improvements by focusing on almost unprocessed carbs during the workout windows.
Yeah.
It's funny, right?
Yeah. Well, it's fun. Yeah. Well, because like I said, when you tell people like to eat sugar, they kind of are like, you know, and also they don't know what to expect from you. Even though you kind of I go through everybody before I work with them, I give them an email and let them know like what our program is. It's phases, health and wellness are our overall things. We're going to look at your stress. We're going to move through things. We're not jumping. I'm not prescribing you anything. Like, I'm not telling you exactly what you should or shouldn't eat. And it basically, that's a long game, you know, that we're not in here, but you know, week 1, week 2, it's when they start getting like, they don't really know about the process. They know they feel a little
Right.
bit better, but it's like they need to start, you know, you need to start asking those questions. When you start asking questions about their gut, like the one girl, like who I work with, has had IBS issues for years, where she like wouldn't even eat before going on a car ride because
Oh,
she was
wow.
concerned. Yeah, and she hasn't had a bout of it in 3.5 weeks.
That's
So I'm
great.
like, and she's on fruits and greens, you know, and she's eating real food.
Mm-hmm.
So I imagine with her, and we don't talk about, a lot of times I don't talk about unrefined versus refined, because I just talked about balancing the plate. And
Yeah.
when I'm talking about adding some more about, hey, we need 4 to 5 servings of fruits and veggies a day. All right. So like, and I plan out the meals where it's going to be. The easiest meal of the day, where can you hit it? We talk about that. You know, even with our carbs, I don't really talk much about unrefined versus refined, except when we start saying like, how's your satiation? How are your cravings?
Right.
If the
Yeah.
cravings are kicking in, that may be because they are eating some sugary things. But if they're also not hitting their calories, that's when we talk about, hey, you may want to add in. And like sometimes I'll tell people to add in, not related to carbs, but I'm like, hey, do you like pepperoni and cheese? They're like, yeah. Like, something fat at the end of the day. They're like, you mean I can eat that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's food. It's food. It's good for you, you know, like, yeah, all food, you know, it's funny to kind of see the workings, but I really love the education piece that they're all getting from it, you know, and how confident I feel like a lot of them have become kind of through the process of how we do it,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
For sure. So the tip notes, there is no bad food. Just
Yeah. Yeah, food is just food.
it really
It's
is.
fuel. It's
And people need to be more comfortable with it. And you know what? It's easier said than done. That's why people need coaches.
yeah.
100%.
Need coaches.
100%. Just knowing when to do what.
Yeah.
85% of what we do has nothing to do with food. I
Yeah,
tell
it
people
really
that all the
doesn't.
time.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, oh, did you see my food log? Sometimes I'll have them ask me something like, hey, can you check out my Fitness Pal? Something like I'm missing something. I'll be like, hey, you can add a little bit more protein at meals or whatever. But for the most part, I'm going through things and we're not even talking about food. It's just all starts falling into place,
Mm-hmm.
you know, as they start feeling better. And it's just more like mentally talking them off the ledge sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
you know, getting them out of their bad habits and having them recheck the boxes that we talk about. You know, letting them know that I'm here anytime, that they need to reach out. I am finally getting clients reaching out. For a long time, I had clients that just like, I think they felt like they were bothering you. And then you get to a meeting and they unleash like 7 things. Like right before the meeting, you're like, hey, is there anything that bothered you this week? And the next thing you know, it's like, and you're like, you have a call in an hour with them and you're like, what the fuck? A whole week went by. Why didn't you just text me?
You're like, we can cover this on a call. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's funny. But
all right. Well, good talk today, guys. So everyone have a great week. I'm going to post these a little faster now. I'll get this done right now. So
Oh, since it's your me day. Great. Okay. Wonderful.
I'll get this up and running.
All right, man.
my me day.
See you guys. Have a good week.
See you next week. Yep.
Bye.